we're going to unpack the power of spectrograms. And we'll be using this really cool interactive online tool that honestly makes these complex signals feel intuitive, visible, and actually kind of fun to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. And a spectrogram, at its core, it's essentially that visual map you mentioned. It shows a signal's frequency content, what pitches are in it and how that changes over time. The real power, I think, isn't just seeing the shape of a signal. It's about understanding what it's truly made of, those different frequency components, and crucially, how they shift and evolve moment to moment. And what's great about this tool is it lets you explore all sorts of signals from, simple generated waves right up to really important biomedical ones, the kind that tell the story of what's happening inside your body.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that then. If we're mapping these invisible signals, how does a spectrogram actually do that? Like, what are we really looking at on the screen?
Okay, think of it maybe like a musical score, but way more versatile for any kind of signal. So horizontally, that's your x-axis. That represents time. It just flows from left to right, and it corresponds to a specific time window you set in the tool.
A time window.
Yeah, and that window isn't just like a duration. It's the specific slice of the signal you're analyzing at any given instant.
So does the length of that time window change what you see? Like, could a really short window hide details or a long one maybe blur things together?
That's a really insightful question. It absolutely matters. A shorter window gives you fantastic time resolution. You can pinpoint exactly when a little blip or change happens, but you might lose some detail on which specific frequencies are present. It's a bit fuzzier on the frequency side.
Oh, okay.
Conversely, if you use a longer window, you get much better frequency resolution. You can see the exact pitches, the exact frequencies much more clearly, but then you lose some of that precise timing. You know what frequencies were there, but maybe not exactly when they started or stopped within that longer window.
So it's a trade-off then. You choose what you want to focus on, time or frequency detail.
Exactly. It's a fundamental trade-off in signal processing. And the tool lets you play with that directly.
Cool. Okay, so that's the timeline, the x-axis. What about the vertical axis, the y-axis?
Right, the y-axis. That represents frequency, and it's measured in hertz. Lower frequencies are down at the bottom, higher frequencies go up towards the top, and this goes up to whatever max frequency you decide to set, depending on the signal you're looking at. A really useful feature here, especially for certain signals, is switching between a linear scale and a logarithmic scale.
Logarithmic, why would you use that?
Well, think about audio or even some biomedical signals like brainwaves. The range of frequencies can be huge, right? From very low frequencies like deep sleep brainwaves to much higher ones. A logarithmic scale kind of compresses that huge range. It lets you see detail in the low frequencies and the high frequencies clearly on the same graph, rather than having all the low frequency stuff squished at the very bottom on a linear scale.
I see. So it makes it easier to see everything that's going on across a wide range.
Precisely. Especially useful for audio perception and many biological signals.
Okay, and then there are the colors. They seem really important, painting this.
They absolutely are. The color you see at any point on that grid tells you the intensity, or you could say the power of the signal, specifically at that exact frequency and that exact moment in time.
Right.
The tool gives you different color map options, things like viridis, which is common in science, or inferno, plasma, even just grayscale. But the principle is the same. Brighter colors, or sometimes hotter colors, depending on the map, mean that frequency component is stronger, more dominant, louder, if you will, right at that point.
So it's like a heat map of the signal's energy changing over time and across frequencies.
That's a perfect way to put it, a heat map of energy.
And this is where that interactive part you mentioned really comes alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being able to tweak the signal parameters, change the display settings like the color map or the time window, and experience the sonification, the audio part.
Yeah.
It feels less like just looking at data and more like, I don't know, getting your hands dirty in a virtual lab. It must really help build intuition. But tell me more about the sonification. Why is hearing it so important when you can already see it so clearly?
Oh, the sonification is, it's often a game changer because it taps into a completely different way your brain processes information. Our ears are incredibly good at picking up subtle changes, patterns, and textures in sound.
Mm-hmm.
So visually, you might see a band of color get a bit brighter. But when you hear it, you might instantly recognize a shift in pitch or a change in timbre, or maybe a little click or pop that corresponds to a tiny visual detail you might have otherwise overlooked.
So it adds another layer of understanding almost.
Exactly. Sometimes an anomaly or a feature just jumps out at you through the sound in a way it doesn't visually. It really deepens the connection to what the signal is actually doing.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've got this powerful way to visualize and hear signals. What kind of signals can we actually explore with this tool? You mentioned a range.
Yeah, it covers a good spectrum. It starts with some foundational synthetically generated signals. These are like the basic building blocks.
Okay.
You've got the classic sine wave, just a single pure frequency. Doesn't change. It's the simplest waveform there is, really.
The fundamental note, sort of.
Pretty much. Understanding how these pure tones combine is, well, it's key to understanding more complex sounds and signals, like learning musical notes before reading a whole symphony.
Right. Makes sense. What else in the synthetic category?
Then there's the chirp signal. This one's interesting because its frequency isn't constant. It sweeps, usually from low to high or high to low, over time.
Ah, I think I know that sound.
Yeah.
Like a sci-fi pew sound sometimes.
Sort of, yeah. They're used all over the place, radar, sonar, because that changing frequency is great for measuring distance and speed. Also used a lot in testing audio systems to see how they respond across the whole frequency range.
Okay.
Then you have a pulse train. Think of it as just a series of regular on-off clicks or pulses. Super fundamental for digital communications. It's basically how we represent streams of ones and zeros, binary data.
The heartbeat of digital information.
In a way, yes. And finally, among the synthetics, there's white noise. This is basically random signal energy spread equally across all frequencies.
Like static on an old TV or radio.
Exactly like that. It sounds like shh. It might seem boring, but it's incredibly useful for modeling background noise in systems or for testing how robust a signal processing algorithm is. Does it pick out a real signal from the noise?
So even randomness has its uses. Have you ever used white noise analysis and found something like totally unexpected?
Oh, definitely. I remember one time working on an audio processing system. We were feeding it what we thought was a clean signal plus some white noise for testing. But the spectrogram of just the noise unexpectedly showed this faint but very distinct line at a specific high frequency.
Huh.
It turned out to be interference from some other equipment in the lab we hadn't accounted for. The white noise test, ironically, helped us find non-random interference we wouldn't have spotted otherwise. It made the unwanted pattern stand out.
Wow, that's a great example. Okay, so those are the synthetic foundational signals, but you mentioned we can also look at signals from, like, inside us, the biomedical signals. That sounds fascinating.
It really is. This is where you see direct, real-world applications, things happening in our own bodies. So first up, there's EEG, that's electroencephalogram. It measures the electrical activity of the brain.
Brainwaves.
Exactly, brainwaves. And what's so cool is you can generate signals that look like the different known brainwave patterns. You can see the slower delta waves associated with deep sleep, or theta waves linked to drowsiness or deep meditation. Then there are the slightly faster alpha waves, which you typically see when someone is relaxed, maybe with their eyes closed but awake. And then the faster beta waves, which dominate when you're alert, focused, actively thinking, or problem solving.
So you could literally, like, see the difference between chilling out and concentrating hard just by looking at the dominant frequencies.
You absolutely could. This tool lets you simulate those shifts, making those abstract mental states visually concrete. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. What else?
Then there's ECG, or electrocardiogram. This records the electrical rhythm of the heart.
The heartbeat signal we see in hospitals.
That's the one. You can clearly see the characteristic parts of the waveform. The P wave, the big spike, which is the QRS complex, and then the T wave. Each corresponds to a specific part of the heart's contraction and relaxation cycle. But it's not just about seeing the normal heartbeat. Imagine seeing what, say, an arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat looks like. Something that might feel like just a slight flutter, or maybe nothing at all, could show up as a really obvious disruption in the pattern on the spectrogram. It highlights potential issues visually.
So it could be like an early warning system, visually speaking.
In a sense, yes. The patterns tell a story. We also have EMG, electromyogram. This picks up the electrical signals generated by muscle activity.
Like when you flex your bicep.
Exactly. You'd see on the spectrogram that as the muscle contracts harder, the signal gets both larger in amplitude, more intense color, and generally shifts towards higher frequencies. It gives you a direct look at how much a muscle is working, or potentially fatiguing.
Okay.
Then there's EOG, electrokilogram. This measures the electrical potential changes caused by eye movements.
Moving your eyes creates an electrical signal.
It does. It's subtle, but measurable. This is super useful in sleep studies, those rapid eye movements during REM sleep. EOG helps researchers pinpoint exactly when REM stages are happening, which is crucial for understanding sleep quality and structure.
Fascinating. And one more, the PPG.
Right, PPG, photoplethysmogram. This one might be the most familiar to people now, even if they don't know the name. It measures changes in blood volume in the tiny blood vessels, usually in your finger or wrist.
Oh, like on a smartwatch or those finger clip things.
Exactly. That's the core technology. Your smartwatch shines a light, measures how much light is absorbed or reflected, which changes as blood pulses through. The spectrogram would show this rhythmic change in blood volume. The device then analyzes that rhythm to calculate your heart rate. So you're not just getting a number. The PPG signal itself, visualized, shows the actual ebb and flow of blood with each heartbeat. It's the pulse of life right there.
Wow. Seeing it laid out like that, it really makes you appreciate how much information these signals carry. This tool seems incredibly valuable then, not just for engineers, but for students, educators. Anyone curious about this stuff?
I agree. It really bridges the gap between abstract theory in textbooks and, tangible, visible phenomena. Whether you're in signal processing, biomedical fields, communications, even audio analysis, it makes these concepts much more accessible and, frankly, engaging.
And it sounds like it's still evolving. You mentioned some future directions, like signal mixing.
Yeah, the developers have some exciting plans. Signal mixing is one. The idea is to let you additively combine different signals. So you could say, take a sine wave, add some white noise to it, maybe throw in a simulated ECG signal and see what the combined spectrogram looks like. You'd be able to observe things like constructive and destructive interference directly.
That sounds like you could create some really complex scenarios, like a virtual signal playground.
Pretty much. Another big one is real-time microphone input. Imagine being able to just talk or sing or play an instrument and see the spectrogram of that sound appear instantly on the screen.
Oh, that would be cool. Instant vocal analysis.
Yeah, or analyzing environmental sounds. They're also looking at adding advanced STFT controls. STFT stands for short-time Fourier transform, which is the mathematical process underlying the spectrogram. Exposing controls like the FFT size, the amount of overlap between those time windows we talked about, different windowing functions like Hahn or Hamming, these give you finer control over that time-frequency trade-off.
So more knobs to turn for the experts to really fine-tune the analysis.
Exactly. It's like having different kinds of lenses for your signal microscope. You can choose the best one for revealing the specific details you're interested in. And finally, they're planning data export options. So you could save the spectrogram as a high-quality image file, like a PNG, or export the raw signal data itself as a CSV file, or maybe a WAV audio file, so you can analyze it further in other software.
That makes it even more powerful for research or projects. So, okay, bringing this all together for you, our listener, what's the big takeaway? Exploring these signals, playing with these controls. It sounds like it gives you a fundamentally deeper grasp of how signals work, how they're built, how we analyze them, and maybe most importantly, how they underpin so much of the technology and even the biology that shapes our world every day. It's almost like getting, data X-ray vision.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah, to sum up, a spectrogram isn't just some static graph. It's really a dynamic window, a window into this hidden world of rhythms, frequencies, fluctuations, everything from the mathematical purity of a sine wave to the incredibly complex electrical symphony happening inside our own heads and hearts. It makes the invisible visible. And I think what's really captivating is how this relatively simple visual representation can unlock such profound insights into really complex systems. It turns abstract data into something you can actually intuitively understand.
That idea of a window is powerful. Can you maybe share one more quick, surprising thing that window might reveal, something people might not expect?
Okay, well, sometimes in audio, particularly with machinery noise maybe, what sounds to your ear like just a single, steady, annoying hum, when you look at its spectrogram, you might discover it's not one frequency at all. It could actually be, say, 2 or 3 distinct separate frequencies that are very close together, and they're interacting, maybe beating against each other, which creates the perception of that single hum.
So what you hear isn't always the full picture of what's really there.
Exactly. And knowing that changes how you'd approach trying to cancel that noise, for example. You need to tackle the individual components. The spectrogram reveals that underlying complexity.
That's a perfect final illustration. So as you go about your day, maybe think about this. How could understanding these basic signal concepts, the kind of spectrogram lets you explore, change how you look at the world? Think about the charts and data visualizations you see constantly in the news and science articles, maybe even from your own fitness tracker or health app. Could understanding frequency and time give you a new lens to interpret that information more critically? What hidden patterns or stories are waiting in the data all around us, if only we knew how to look?
Okay, there is a human in the loop, just in case you have any questions.
Everything we do is available freely on BioniChaos.com. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and don't forget to gently click like, subscribe, and comment.